Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. The title race is back on for those that were ruling it out. Manchester City defeat Liverpool at the Etihad Stadium. How did they do it? Where did Liverpool go wrong? Don't worry, here are the interviews. We've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Manchester City beat Liverpool. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered both sides look to approach the game, and then we'll move to the second half, see how Klopp's changes affected the game and how City were able to pull off the victory. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Manchester City 4-3-3, Aguero, Sterling, Sane up front. In midfield, they went with Bernardo Silva and David Silva ahead of Fernandinho. Then we move to Liverpool, the same system, 4-3-3, no real surprises here. Mane, Salah, and Firmino up front. In midfield, they went with Wijnaldum, Henderson, and Milner. So now let's get to the first half, see how both sides look to approach the game and how City were able to go into halftime up 1-0. Liverpool against Manchester City, 4-3-3 against 4-3-3. The mood around the ground, it felt like Manchester City had to win if they wanted to stay in the title race. Whereas for Liverpool, if they drew or if they won, it didn't really matter. As long as they didn't lose, they would still have that gap over Manchester City, and that was most important. So their approach here was very interesting. And when you look at it, they didn't drop off deep. They looked to kind of press from the front when the opportunity was there, but there were some aspects in how they approached the game that were very interesting. The first one was obviously how they pressed from the front. There were real no surprises because without the ball, if they were a bit higher, you would see, as we've seen throughout the season, Salah and Mane kind of sit in between the center back and the fullback to try and ensure that the center backs didn't have any passing outlets out into the wider areas. When they did press from the front and the center backs did split, you would have Firmino dropping off a bit deeper. You would have the wider players push out to the center backs. What happened now is that if Bernardo Silva did drop off a bit deeper, you would have Henderson push out to him, and that was key there. You would have Fernandinho kind of blocked off into that space, and that's where Firmino would be sitting to ensure that he couldn't get on the ball. And if the ball was pushed out to Danilo, you would have, again, and Milner pushing out into that space there. Wijnaldum sat on David Silva, but if he had to push out, he would push out regardless. That was how Liverpool did look to close down space, and it did work effectively. The other aspect that was very interesting from Liverpool was the fact and the manner in which how they shut down the midfield. You look at the Liverpool front line and how they are positioned here. You have Firmino sitting onto Fernandinho, and you have the three just sitting across to ensure that nothing is really moving into that space. So the center backs and Stones and company are allowed to be on the ball, but they don't really have any passing outlets into Fernandinho. And then when you look at the midfield bank of that Liverpool midfield, you see them kind of pushing forward as well. So in that aspect, even if you have Bernardo Silva or David Silva like looking to step in and try to get on the ball, Silva likes to push a bit more advanced to get at the ball in between the lines, so that didn't really matter. But Milner was close to Bernardo Silva. What would happen here is that the pass into Fernandinho was blocked off, but Henderson was within close proximity to ensure that there was a box in between there, and that was kind of how they were positioned out. You got 6 men in that central midfield zone, eager to have City play the ball into Fernandinho or play the ball into the midfielders there. They couldn't do that, and that was pivotal, and that was one way that Liverpool really neutralized Manchester City's midfield from having a significant impact in the game. Silva was quiet. Bernardo Silva's work rate was more influential than his overall influence on the ball, and Fernandinho had a few moments, but for the most part was shunted out of the game. But the thing here for Liverpool was going forward, when you think about it, they did find space between the lines. They did find space to either side of Fernandinho, and that was key because we've seen them do that throughout the season. The midfield overloads with Firmino dropping off, with Salah dropping off. They were trying to do that here, and unlike Liverpool, where Liverpool tracked Aguero and just dropping off a bit deeper, there was no real tracking here. You look at the first time where they do get the ball, it's Robertson who gets on the ball. Sterling presses to him late, And what we have is Mane dropping off, and he's able to get the ball in behind or to the right of Fernandinho. And that was already one incident where you think, okay, well, something has to give here. The reason why is because when Milner was dropping off, you had Danilo step to him, and that allowed Mane to kind of drop off ahead of the center backs to get on the ball, come across, and then play the overlapping Arnold, who was pushing forward. We'll get to how Sterling and Sane's ability not to track back, which they are renowned for. At moments, we had Liverpool's fullbacks pushing forward, and here that happened, and he delivered the cross into the box. Fernandinho was able to deflect it into the path of his keeper. Luckily, didn't cause them any harm. Another move down that same side, we had Bernardo push out to Robertson, but again, it's just Salah dropping off, no one picking him up. To the right of Fernandinho, gets on the ball. That's a big warning sign, because in the build-up to the half's best chance, you see Salah dropping off again into that space. He drops off a bit deeper this time. Bernardo steps to him. He's able to turn Bernardo with ease, looking to run at goal from half. What happens is that Firmino is stepped to by Laporte, and Fernandinho steps as well. So he's able to play the pass to Firmino to drag out Laporte, and then what happens is Salah bypasses Fernandinho to get the ball back, and you have Mane running across the center backs. He's able, with Company stepping forward, ball played in. What happens there is that Stones tracks him, Mane fires a shot off the post. Liverpool are unfortunate because what happens now is that Stones clips it off Ederson. The ball is eventually cleared off the line, but that was one of their better chances. That goes to show that they were able to really drop off deeper, find space in midfield, and harm this Manchester City backline. And the final opportunity that they really did have through poor City pressing and the ability to find space between the lines saw another pressing breakdown from Manchester City. You end up seeing Ederson or Alisson get onto the ball. What happens now is that Silva decides to step forward, which he didn't often do, but as he steps forward to the goalkeeper, what happens now is that Wijnaldum's able to get the ball, and as Silva tries to recover and Sane try to recover, ball is clipped over Sane to Arnold. Sane shifts over. You have Arnold nutmeg him. Then you have Fernandinho step forward. And once Fernandinho steps forward, there's space for Milner to get on the ball because Laporte is being occupied by Firmino drifting into that zone. What happens now is that Milner is able to play the ball outside of Company for Salah, but luckily for Manchester City, Company did a very good job against Salah 1v1 in the positions that he was placed into, and he was able to win that ball there and clear the lines. But when you think about Liverpool as a whole in the first half, they were doing a good job, not sitting deep, looking to push forward as a unit, blocking off the passes into the midfield when they press from goal kicks, and when City tried to play out of the back, they ensured that City were unable to bypass them there, and they were finding space in midfield and created the best chance of the first half. So now let's look to Manchester City, because with that all being said, how did they influence the game? How were they able to bypass Liverpool's defensive block? And how are they able to go into the half up 1-0? So now let's get to Manchester City and see how they were able to influence the game. So when we look at Manchester City's opportunities, there are two distinct elements that really stand out. One was the fact that they often played down the left-hand side. Nothing came down the right. They wanted to get Leroy Sane 1v1 against Alexander-Arnold. We knew that Alexander-Arnold did well against him in the Champions League last season. But here, you have to expect that Sane would get the better of him, just based on the fact that you don't really count on Alexander-Arnold to replicate that performance on a night-in, night-out basis. The other aspect was Aguero was dropping off deeper, and unlike Salah and Mane, who were able to drop off freely, he had Van Dijk pressing him at every opportunity, and not much was coming down the right-hand side. Sterling was trying to ensure that Robertson wasn't pushing forward, and when he went 1v1 with Robertson on the few occasions that Fernandinho was able to switch the ball out to him, he often tried to cut right, and Robertson was able to read that and win those 1v1 challenges. And Danilo never really looked to push forward, only on the rare occasion, based on the fact that Mane did offer a threat down that left-hand side for Liverpool, so that he didn't want to push forward and get hit on the counterattack. So when we look at Manchester City's chances, we see a bit of Aguero, we see a bit of Sane. At some moments, we see them combine as well. One of the first opportunities is a loose Bernardo pass. Sane is able to pick up the ball. He's able to skip past Alexander-Arnold, skip past Milner, who was recovering, but he was only able to fire a tame effort on goal that Alisson was able to pick up. We look to another opportunity where we see Aguero drop off, and we see Ederson Henderson clipped the ball out to Danilo, and he easily side foots the ball into the path of Aguero with Van Dijk tracking him, and Aguero was able to wrap the ball around Van Dijk for Bernardo, and they were able to push forward as a unit. That goes to show what they can do if Aguero drops off, regardless of Van Dijk's presence, and that was pivotal for them because, like I said, Mane and Salah were free to do that, and they needed Aguero to link play if they were going to push forward as a unit. Another opportunity that we do see from Manchester City, it's Sane again with the ball. This time cutting in on Milner, who had shifted over, and he cuts in on Milner, who shifts over, and Henderson steps to him as well, and he's able to split them and play the pass into Aguero, who holds off Van Dijk. And as he holds off Van Dijk, you have David Silva looking to break into the left half space, so he plays it into him, but Silva's pulled back for the box, did see Van Dijk step across, and he was able to intervene there, and that goes to show how vital he is, especially around the box with his aerial presence and his ability to read situations in those areas. Another opportunity that we do see from Manchester City, we see Aguero and Sane link up and combine. What happens there is that the ball from Aguero is shifted out to Sane, or it's Company who hits it out to Sane. What happens now is that as he is pressed, we see Aguero drift out into that space, and he drags out James Milner, and that creates space for Silva to get the ball, who instantly plays it to Aguero. Aguero now has Milner and Lovren tracking him, and Sane continues to run in between both center backs to receive the ball around those two to get it in half space. However, when he gets into that half space and he does try to pull it back, who's there? Virgil van Dijk to clear the lines. There was one more opportunity in the leading up to the build-up of the goal, and it was basically seconds apart from the goal. And what does happen there is Company does find Sane, who's dropping off and dragging out Arnold. And as he drags out Arnold, he plays the ball back to Laporte. As he plays the ball back to Laporte, Salah takes a bit to close him down, and Sane is able to peel off Arnold. Ball clipped over Arnold. Sane skips past Lovren, but his cross into the box is pushed away by Alisson. In the build up to that, we eventually see Fernandinho slide the ball out to the wide areas for Laporte. His cross is cleared by Van Dijk, but Bernardo picks it up, and Bernardo's able to run past his marker in Wijnaldum. And what happens there is as he pulls the ball back into the path of Lovren at the front post, Aguero steps in behind him. He's able to get that first touch, and he fires a rocket past Alisson that the keeper had no chance of saving. So we break things down. We look at the City chances. Yes, they pressed well from the front. They were struggling to get anything going through midfield based off the shape that Liverpool had without the ball, ensuring that Bernardo and Fernandinho couldn't get the ball in the zone, and that passes couldn't find Silva in between the lines, so they had to go through wide areas. They tried Sterling on the rare occasion. He was marked out by Robertson. They went down the left and they were finding joy, and that was one of the reasons, along with Aguero's link-up play, why they went into halftime up 1-0. So now let's get to the second half, see what changes Klopp made, and see how Manchester City were able to close out the game. When we look at the second half, we expected more from Liverpool and we expected more from City. We wanted to see City be able to play passes without conceding possession, and we want to see if Liverpool would be able to build attacks through sustained periods of possession. But when we look at it, nothing really changed in the opening 10 minutes or so. We did see City press a bit differently as Liverpool looked to spread out the center backs when they try to build out from goal kicks. We did see Henderson and Wijnaldum drop into that space. We saw Silva push out more to Wijnaldum. We saw Aguero take up Henderson. Then we had the wider players pushing out to the center backs, and that was how they were able to press them in and bog them in. If they wanted to push the ball out to the fullbacks, you would have the shuttlers that were available to step out if need be. But for the most part, Liverpool were unable to really cause a threat there. So what happened after that was that we saw Fabinho come on, and with Fabinho coming on, Liverpool moved to more of a 4-2-3-1. Fabinho moved into midfield with Henderson. We had Wijnaldum push out to the left-hand side. Salah and Firmino. Salah played up top, Firmino moved to number 10, and Mane moved to the right. When you think about that, it doesn't really change the way Liverpool could go about things because Salah plays up front. You have Firmino sitting on Fernandinho. Then you have Bernardo against Fabinho, and you have Silva against Henderson. With that being said, that leaves Wijnaldum now, who could step out, and he could offer a threat by pressing Danilo, and that's what he wanted to do. And then you have Mane against Laporte. You probably want Mane to run at him, so it kind of makes sense. They offer another attacking player, but what we did see throughout that second half was Also in the first half, we saw Robertson and we saw Alexander-Arnold get time, more so Alexander-Arnold's time to push forward because the wide players in Sane and Sterling were getting caught a bit too narrow. We saw that happen here. Fabinho offered more security in the center of the pitch. He was able to be a reliable passer, ping balls out diagonally, and we saw somewhat of a ripple effect. First, we saw Mane, who was able to switch the ball out to Alexander-Arnold, pushing forward. He wasn't closed down. He delivers a cross into the box that is cleared, or it was Robertson who delivered a cross into the box that was cleared by Stones, and it fell to Alexander-Arnold, who flashed a shot inches wide of the net. Then we look to the free kick from Alexander-Arnold. Ederson comes out to attack it, and him and company kind of miscommunicate. Then it falls to Firmino, who drives across the half space and fires a shot on goal that we see Ederson save with company retrieving as well. Then we get to the build up to the goal, which kind of sees something of the similar play. We see Fabinho switch the ball out, long diagonal out to Firmino, and what happens there is that Firmino is able to hold it off. He's able to hold off Laporte pressing. He drops it off to Alexander-Arnold. Alexander-Arnold clips a diagonal ball of a switch out to Robertson. Then he drops it back to Fabinho, switches it to Henderson. Henderson again switches out to Alexander-Arnold, where we have Sane there, and he's able to cut in on Sane. Sane doesn't close down well, and he clips a long diagonal where he possibly could have crossed the ball into Robertson making the run, because what we have there is Sterling switching off more central as well. So Sterling's caught out, Sane lets him deliver the cross in, Danilo should probably deal with it, but he doesn't, and it falls to Robertson, who side foots the ball across goal. Company switches off, Stones taken out of the play, falls to Firmino, who nods his effort into the net, and just like that, Liverpool are leveled 1-1. And you think about it, how are City going to fight back? Because they aren't creating chances. They're not forcing Alisson to make any saves. They had one route, and it was through Raheem Sterling's direct dribbling. See the ball switched out to Danilo, and what happens, he's able to find Sterling out in the touchline. When you find Sterling out in that touchline, what happens here for the first time is instead of going down the touchline or trying to cut in right, he cuts centrally. So Sterling cuts centrally, he's able to bypass Henderson, and he's able to bypass Fabinho, and he drives that goal, and he forces Van Dijk out wide into that right half space. As he forces him out there, his pullback is also great, and it falls to Aguero. But like he did for the first goal, he tries to take that first touch across Lovren, and his touch is heavy, but that's a great chance for Manchester City to build on their lead. The build up to Sane's winner kind of stems from a Liverpool error or a Liverpool opportunity, and it does see the ball played into Sane, a loose ball from a nod back from company, and he's harried by Firmino, and he's harried by Firmino, and he's harried by Henderson. And as he tries to play the pass into Fernandinho, it's poor, and it goes to Wijnaldum, who then sees a route for Salah to break in between the center backs. And as he plays that ball into the center backs, Ederson is off his line quickly, and he slides the ball out to Danilo. As he does that, Wijnaldum steps forward because he thinks he could close him down. And when he does do that, what happens here is that Wijnaldum stepping forward, Sterling somehow stayed onside. And Sterling stayed onside as the pass goes in between Fabinho and in between Robertson, and he picks it up. And as he picks it up in between Van Dijk and Robertson, he runs at the back four, and with Lovren eventually stepping forward and Aguero dragging out Alexander-Arnold, he's able to slide that ball into Sane, and as Alexander-Arnold tries to retreat, he's able to fire the shot through him and pass Alisson off the post and in. We saw Shaqiri come on. Shaqiri moved to the left-hand side. We eventually saw Daniel Sturridge come on, and Manchester City brought on Otamendi, and they brought on Kyle Walker as they were dealing with injuries to ensure some defensive cover. But when you think about it, yes, there were chances created when Liverpool pushed forward. City should have probably doubled their lead. Bernardo had an opportunity. Sterling, Aguero should have rounded Alisson. Liverpool had one more opportunity as well, where Fernandinho was dispossessed, and Henderson was able to push forward and slide the ball between the center backs or across Stones as Salah made the run across the center backs. And as he fired his first time shot in left half space, Ederson was able to push it away for a corner kick. But when you break down the game as a whole, you look at it, and Liverpool didn't do bad here. City weren't that great, but City had the threat down the left hand side, and that outweighed their poor passing and Aguero dropping deep, and the ability for Fernandinho to really break up play in midfield, and Bernardo Silva's work rate shouldn't go unnoticed here. But Liverpool created some of the game's better chances, and unfortunately for them, they were, due to Lovren there and due to a few defensive mislapses, they were unable to claim all 3 points. But let me know what you guys think. Is the title race back on? Who is the favorite now? Is it Liverpool? Is it City? Who would you put your money on? And what does this say about this Manchester City side? No De Bruyne, no Jesus brought in, no Mahrez. Are they able to really push again and do better than they did last season and fight off Liverpool and build on that and ensure to close that gap? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.